And you know, I don't typically say this, but I think I have to give a Best Verse of the Cypher award to Yo, I'm Mat4yo, and this is Chisel This. So today we've got the Pokemon Masters 8 Cypher. For anybody who doesn't know, the Masters 8 tournament is something that's happening right now in the Pokemon anime series. It's something called the World Coronation Series, and it essentially brought together 8 of the most powerful trainers in the Pokemon world. Since it's still happening right now, and it's in the finals round, as it airs in Japan, there is not an actual winner, and so the Cypher makes perfect sense that we can put anybody in any particular order. And I think that that's one of the real strengths of this Cypher, is that it's not bound to the rigid structure of, let's say, generations 1 through 8 trainers or generations 1 through 8 legendaries. You know, in those situations, you kind of have to put them in order to meet the audience's expectation, to know what's coming next in a way that doesn't confuse them, and it also informs them about which generation they're looking at if they don't quite understand. Because you only have a split second to really tell them who is rapping at that point. So this was really great, not only because Cam could arrange the rappers in any way that he liked, but really because he could arrange the verses in any way that he liked after they were finished. Essentially, the way that it works is Cam sends out a pretty plain beat, and he tells us how long to rap for, and we go in on it. There's no beat changes, there's no cuts, there's no emphasis. It's just a plain old beat, and because of that, he can do whatever he wants in the background when him and Dustin mix the song together. He can emphasize things, he can cut the beat, he can add some extra claps, extra snares, yada yada. In this particular cypher, he was able to match each verse with a companion verse that blended well together with it. So, for example, in Iris's verse, when she ends her verse with the long O sound, plasma down in my bone marrow, and then I come in saying, let it be known I'm better than these clones, I'm continuing her rhyme scheme without ever having really planned that. And that's the genius of being able to mix and master this with complete creative freedom. The other unique thing about this cypher, and I think why it's actually getting a lot of positive feedback, is because it is shorter, and because of that, it forces each particular rapper to focus on their flow and their delivery more so than creating any sort of big picture things that you might find from a typical Mat4yo verse, for example. When I played Hydreigon last time, you saw me creating this big concept and using the character's lore and inspiration and biblical references and trying to rap as that character and incorporate those things into the verse to make it unique and distinguishable from other pseudo-legendaries. With this cypher, because they are humans, sure, they have personalities, they have character arcs, but at the end of the day, they are humans that each rapper can project themselves onto, and that's what it really is for every rapper. It's a chance for you to express yourself through the guise of that character, using their vocabulary and their world as a lens through which you can project your own style. And because of that, verses of mine, such as Alain's and Hilbert's, turn out very different from verses like Solgaleo, Lunala, and Necrozma and Hydreigon, because they're big and heady compared to something that just allows me to just focus on writing a cool rap. And so you have to kind of commit to that when you go into the writing room, saying, okay, I need to pick a focus. Is it going to be really heavy bars and references, or is it going to be something that can catch people's attention and sound interesting and cool? And when you have a short cypher, I feel like everybody chooses the latter, and then you get this result. So when Cam called me and said that I was going to be playing Alain, I was shocked because I didn't think that I would be in this cypher. I was just in the last one and the one before that, and he's always so gracious with allowing me to have a voice for you guys to be able to hear me rap, and I'm so thankful. And I was really honored to hear that I was chosen to be Alain. I really liked Alain because he's this rival type. He is a rival to Ash, and me and Cam have that relationship, so we can think about the other in our head while we're writing our verses, and that's where I got like my ending line from. But I knew about Alain, and I knew that a lot of people really don't know about Alain because him and Ash are the only rappers in this cypher to not originate from a video game and to not be a champion in that video game. So that was, you know, when you're talking about perspective, where do I want to come into this verse? That's really where I started. And once I got on a roll, I finished my whole verse that night. So within 2 hours, I found out I was going to be in this cipher, I found out who I was going to play, and I had my verse written. But I did something that I don't normally do, and instead of recording the next day or a couple days later, I sat with it for a week, and I just kept singing it over and over in my head and trying to find weak spots where I think that the flow could be better. And that materialized into the verse that you see here. So I'll tell you right now, this is the verse I had on the first night that I made my Alain verse. The beginning part was all normal, and then for the second stanza, I went into a tough claw kids, any tyrant I tarnish, like an animal I mar it. If you want to know which color burns the hottest, then read my Mega Charizard's lips. So I was trying to sneak in another reference to Malamar there, and my first instinct is to try to appeal to the listener's cognition instead of their raw, immediate emotional response. And I'm trying to cram it as much as I can, but I had to make that sacrifice and say, take that out. It's not worth it for how stunted the delivery is going to sound. And so I reworked that into what you have. The second part that I changed, I originally had, down to the fiery finish, me and the team, we violent, cinching the league. I call it mission complete when I beat every tryhard listed on the scene down to XYZ. So I'm keeping a lot of the rhyming words in there, but I realized that I had this really cool thing going where I was rhyming two things at once in the first line, and I gave up on that afterwards. So I erased it from my head, I committed to redoing it, and I found a way to rhyme the beginning of each line and the second part of each line together. So down to the fiery finish, me and the team, we violent cinching, mission complete like Zygarde isn't. And then the other part is, down to the fiery finish, me and the team, we violence. It's in the league, mission complete like Zygarde. Isn't it neat that with the A, B sweeping the XYZ? Charizard's lips. On down to the fiery finish, me and the team, we violence. It's in the league, mission complete like Zygarde. Isn't it neat that with the A, B sweeping the XYZ? See me spinning fast. So there's two different competing rhyme schemes happening, and I thought it was ambitious, and I was vastly rewarded with the now trademarked Porky Pig flow, courtesy of Game Boy Jones in his reaction video. Bro, that had me on the floor laughing. That was so funny. So when it comes to deciding what to write about, I kind of mentioned that earlier. I wanted to start by mentioning how Alain is sort of the black sheep of the group. The rest of the characters who are not the main protagonist are all Pokemon champions that originate from a video game, and he's not. So I had this line that calling everyone else clones and saying he's going to make all these other champions dethroned. And of course, this double rhyme scheme, which stays pretty basic, it all services the first real punchline that I came up with, which is I B sharp when I hit the right keystone. So obviously Bisharp is one of Alain's Pokemon, and B sharp is actually a note that you can play on a piano, or a song can be in the key of a certain note. But the reason I use key at all is because Alain uses an item called a keystone to allow his Charizard to Mega Evolve. So all of those things are wrapped up in a bow, and you get this line that only Alain could possibly deliver in this entire cipher. And then you're trying to reach the next big punchline I came up with, which is something about his Mega Charizard X. That's his ace, it's very important to him, and I wanted to make a specific reference to Mega Charizard X because a lot of other trainers, many on the cipher, have Charizards, but Alain is the only one that can Mega Evolve his Charizard into Mega Charizard X. And so I'm looking for what's unique about Mega Charizard X. Of course, you have the fact that his color has changed to black, the fact that he has blue flames, and wait a second, blue flames, obviously. Blue is the hottest color a flame can be, and so I wanted to incorporate that little science lesson into the verse as well, bringing something non-fictional and something fictional, blending it together, and you get that nice little mid-verse punchline that people can kind of pucker their lips and nod their face at. So then I knew I wanted to reference the title of the episode where Ash loses to Alain, because that's the eventual ending punchline I'm reaching, and I thought it was really cool how that episode is called Down to the Fiery Finish, and I thought that there was a lot of rhyming potential there, and so I went with that for the Porky Pig flow, as I mentioned earlier. Of course, I snuck in a reference to Weavile with We Violent, and a reference to Zygarde, who is the third legendary of the Pokemon X and Y games. You have Mission Complete. Zygarde reaches his complete form when all of his cores are collected, and isn't it neat the way that A, B sweep into XYZ? So XYZ, of course, is the titular anime series. So the way that A, Alain, B to B, right, the state of being, sweeping almost sounds like C. So A, B, C sweeping to XYZ, A, B sweeping to XYZ. So it's all the way down the alphabet. He's knocking out everybody who challenges him. I was really pleased to see the response to the end of my cipher. A lot of people in the reaction videos I saw were using the word sauce. Of course, I was going for something that's a little bit out of my comfort zone. I was trying to make it sound a little bit cooler, sound a little bit more like a rap you would want to sing in the shower, that kind of thing. And so I had my punchline, who needs Team Flare when you're cremating Ash? And I wanted to come up with symmetry for all of the 4 lines at the end of my verse. The reason I came up with that punchline is because Alain was previously a member of Team Flare. He defected, and so who needs Team Flare when you're already have enough fire to cremate an opponent into the result of a cremation, Ash? And that rivalry with Team Flare and Lysander is also referenced at the beginning of the verse when he says, "Any tyrant I tarnish." And some of these filler lines are where the video editor, Sleepless Post, really gets the chance to shine, because obviously, you know, he's limited to finding the clips that relate directly to the things that we're referencing. But when I say a line like, "See me speeding up fast," it kind of references Dragon Dance because your speed increases. But he takes the liberty of using a clip of Alain's Pokemon Unpheasant, who was not referenced in my cipher, and shows it flying fast and flying up against Talonflame, who has a priority ability that lets it attack first. So it's just cool that the extra context that gets added because of Sleepless Post's knowledge of the Pokemon anime. So that was my verse. I hope you guys really liked it. Of course, it was not the only verse in the cipher, so let's check out what I thought of some of the other ones. When Cam first sent me his verse, I was really excited because I've mentioned this before, but when Cam does his sort of schoolyard flow, it's really nostalgic for me, and it sounds like he's like a worthy adversary for me to like rap against. It's just the way that it manifests in my brain. I really, really like it. It's perfect energy for Ash. And my favorite part of his verse is when the verse breaks into the second half and he goes, and he's kind of putting this little like vocal, like this little vocal crack in there. It's very youthful and energetic. I really love it. Rustage is second, and he had the honor of reprising a character that I originally played, Steven Stone. And you know, I don't typically say this, but I think I have to give a Best Verse of the Cipher award to Rustage. I mean, this verse is nearly immaculate. He comes in right away, and I feel like Rustage is at a point where he's so beloved that he really doesn't have to prove anything to you when he jumps on a verse. It's sort of like an exhibition match for him, and you feel that in the way that he is lightheartedly delivering some of his lines. He rhymes Iron Man with quite the man. Like, that's almost the same word, but it's the way that he delivers it. You don't even notice, you don't even care, because it's just so funny and good. He has this cool line where he says, "The gun is Germanic because my metal is gross." The word gross in German means big, and he's using this German letter for double S. It's the perfect way to, like I said earlier, blend fiction and nonfiction together. I also really like, I think I'm the only person who might have got this, but he says, "I'm the son of Joseph." Like, Steven Stone's father is a character in the game, and his name is Joseph Stone. So he's using that basis as a means to make another reference, to say how he's like a Christ figure. I feel like that really works for Steven, because I feel like he is a heartthrob champion, if you will. And the way that he's putting in this vocal inflection, this little vocal crack too, is going back to that point where I said that he really doesn't feel like he needs to prove anything. His delivery is not taking itself too seriously. And I feel like I would like to try to get to that point as well, because when I write and rap, I feel like, and maybe it's my style, maybe you like it, maybe it adds something different to the cipher that wasn't there before, but I really always take it seriously. So I wonder what it would sound like if I tried not taking myself too seriously. It's just interesting how Rustage inspired me to even think that way, and I wasn't before, and we just always kind of bounce back and forth and make each other better when we do these things. Chi-Chi never disappoints. She has such a powerful voice. My favorite part of her verse is when she goes, "Got the fame here, the crowd will roar us." And I really liked how the decision was made to put Diantha and Steven next to each other, because Rustage ends his verse with a line that references movies, and Diantha is a movie star, and she starts her verse by saying action. So it's like, you know, you wouldn't be able to do that if Steven had to go like 3 rappers before Diantha, you know what I mean? And then a real bold choice as well, dropping almost the entire beat and letting Ty Wilde kind of riddle on this instrumental, coming right out of a big band performance that Chi Chi delivered. And it really works because it's showing the dynamics of all the different rappers involved now. I know that that was part of the plan always, was to try to pick rappers that are completely different from the rappers that originally portrayed these characters in the Champion cipher. This totally stands on its own because of that. You know, Ty Wilde is nothing like JT Music when the two of them rap side by side, so it really works. Hold on one sec, I gotta make a phone call. Cam steady?
Yeah.
Oh, that's not who I was looking for. See you later. Wait, come back. I just need you to tell me what "need Amelia, Millie, I'm ill" means.
Oh, I have no.
Hold up. So the man himself, Ty Wilde, just answered me, and he said that it's a reference to 2 actresses from Game of Thrones, Emilia Clarke and Millie Alcock, and also Lil Wayne's song, "A Millie," which I figured. The reason he referenced Game of Thrones is because they use CGI or otherwise fake dragons or fake drakes. Ty put something into practice here in the second half of his verse where he's kind of incorporating a little bit of a lazy delivery, and he's kind of hitting the beats late, and it's just adding this little bit of flex into his delivery where it's like he's so cool that he doesn't even need to keep up with the energy or the exact pacing of the instrumental. I also love the reaction to everybody calling him out, saying, "Yo, slow down, like Claire and Lance are cousins." Like, that's so funny. I was really impressed by Iris's verse. I really liked her her commanding presence that she had. Like, she came in and she's sort of on a little bit more what my wavelength, where she has something to prove. You know, she's coming out here and she is all fists are swinging and all guns are blazing, and she does this line where she says "drew to gun" as a pun on Drudagon, and the video editor shows that on screen, which is very helpful. She references so many like battle mechanics in this verse, and the way that they cut the beat at the end, I thought it was so epic. The whole beat in general just has this big like stadium vibe to it, and it just felt like the whole world slowed down for a second when they did that, and it helps her vocals and her delivery not only shine but stand apart from what she did earlier in the verse. Then of course you have my verse, and then after me comes Cynthia, and I just remember really loving the part where she says, "Oh my God, it's the champion." Like, it gave me goosebumps a little bit because it's not like wordplay, and it's not clever at all. It's just a quote, but I feel like it adds so much context to how Cynthia is received by the general public and how she views herself. The way that "Sailor Your Love" just delivers and belts out this line, it all clicked for me. And then finally at the end, here comes Shao Dow to close it all out. I feel like he knew he was rapping as the final champion in this cipher, and he comes out in full force, and he really wants to prove that he is the best here. He goes in for this, you know, really hard to commit to rhyme scheme with Leon, Rejon, we be on. So I think that the whole world's still trying to find out what a pult is, but he has his own like way of writing like wordplay. "I'll make you know of Ember because you're 4 times weak." And it's like, do you get it? Like, November, the month in the year that has 4 weeks? And it's just like, okay, like every month has 4 weeks, but it's just funny because I feel like he thought of it. He's like, I have to put it in here. Like, there's just no way that I'm not doing that. It sort of commands your respect a little bit. I really like it. "Only time I lost is when I leave my yard, so go fig." When I leave my yard. Yeah, I think I'm going to challenge Shao Dow to make his own video explaining his verse, because there are a lot of questions that need to be answered in here. But it's great. I mean, it's great. His was one of the standout verses too. Everybody seemed to love it. This was just really fun. I feel like everybody really loved this one, and I think that the reasons I described earlier, with it being a little bit shorter, being a little bit more focused, and having the freedom of switching around the verses order to make it flow better and connect with each other, really worked in this cipher's benefit. And I'm very excited to make some more. I will see you on the next Cam Steady Cypher that I'm invited to be a part of. It's always an honor. If you like to hear me talk, I've got more Chisel This videos on the channel. You can learn how to rap. If you do like my raps, I encourage you to check out some more on the channel. All kinds of different, unique, challenging raps that date back for at least 6 years at this point. But for now, I'm Mat4yo, and that's all for yo today.
To this crafty guy, bringing the action, scratching your static sprites. I am the mastermind behind black and white. Here to school you trainers who can't rap and write. It's like I spit trouble, you spit rubbish. When you hear that clink clang, better duck it. I'm a hero to the people who need me. You're a zero, peace out like Victini. Meet me in the city.